everyone, welcome back to another video on my channel. I know you probably can't believe it, another video so soon. Well, actually this video is quite spontaneous. I was actually in bed just eating ice cream, watching random YouTube videos, and then I received a comment from someone asking me like approximately how many hours a day or how long each day or each week do I study French. And then he said, oh, just estimate it, and I thought, yeah, you know, it seems like a simple ask, but then when I tried to sort of start doing it, I realized it was actually quite a complicated thing to do, to calculate in the past 2 years how I've been primarily teaching myself French, because I've used a lot of different methods and I've talked about a lot of these different methods on my channel. So today I thought, with you, I will calculate how many hours a day, how many minutes a day or week do I generally study French. In doing this, I will also be sharing with you pretty much all the different ways that I will try to factor in everything that I did, like watching films or listening to the news. I'll try to factor all that in. So then you'll get to see all the different methods, when I did them, approximately how long I did them for, and then I guess in a way you'll kind of see how useful I thought they were, depending on how much I deem them to correspond to study time. Okay, I know it sounds a bit complicated, but whatever. I thought I would just begin with some thoughts I was having as I made myself look more presentable. I started thinking a bit even more in depth, how was I going to do this? And then started sort of critiquing the fact that I was even going to do this, because I noticed there's actually quite a lot of difficulty and sort of challenges and things you need to be aware of when you ask people, you know, oh, how long do you study a week in French, or how long did it take you to do that? There's actually quite a lot of faults in asking people this and then comparing yourself to it. So let me just tell you some of the things I came up with. So the first thing that I thought of is time frame really matters. So if I say to you, oh, sometimes I study for 20 hours straight French, I don't, but if studying for 20 hours straight in one day French is different to studying 20 hours of French over a week. So it's different, you know, they sort of contribute to your French learning in different ways, you know. Maybe when you're doing it all in one go, you're just doing new material, and whereas maybe if you're doing it over a week, you're kind of recapping things are settling in your mind, and then you're going back to them, or I don't know, they're just different. So it's something to be aware of here, that 20 hours in one day is different to 20 hours in 1 week, and 20 hours in 1 month, and 20 hours over 1 year. So that's something to be aware of. Another thing that I thought of as well is studying how. So 1 hour of study for different people and different times is obviously going to be different as well. You know, if you're tired, then your study might not be as good, or if you're very into what you're doing and you're finding it very interesting, that will make the study time different. It depends as well, maybe if you're studying on your own or if you're studying with a teacher. Are you studying and you actually learn wrong things that then you have to go and correct? Do you have a good teacher, a bad teacher? Do you understand? All these things will impact. You know, you could study something for 10 hours but not understand it, or you could study something for 1 hour and get it straight away. So there's all these complicated things I was thinking about as I was thinking about how I was going to calculate this. Another thing I thought of is obviously what you do when you study. You know, 50 hours of just written French won't make you very good at French conversation. But 50 hours of French conversation won't make you very good at written French. So then there's all these questions about, well, you know, I don't know exactly what your breakdown should be. I would say focus on the things that either you enjoy or that you think are weak and you want to improve on. I would say just do what you like doing, but do be aware that maybe the things that you don't like doing, you should try to do, because they might be weak points. Okay, whatever. So yeah, there's a thing of what are you doing when you study. And then I thought as well that, you know, if someone was doing like just 1 minute of French a day on like a vocab app, 1 minute a day for 60 days, So that's 60 minutes, that's 1 hour, but over 60 days. I guess if you're only doing for short periods, you can't build up your ability to talk or do French for longer periods. But if you only study for longer periods, are you missing out on like adding small bits of French to your life when you're on the train? Anyway, these are all just thoughts that I had. Another thing I thought of was, what about when you're not actively studying? So when I was in Paris, and I was basically on holiday. I mean, I lived there, but I was basically acting like I was on holiday, really. And I was doing all this sightseeing. I wasn't studying, I was sightseeing. But when you're traveling around, you notice things. So you see the pharmacy is called La Pharmacie, or wherever, hopefully it's called La Pharmacie. But you know, you notice the names of the shops, and you sort of absorb it. Or you're in supermarkets, and you start to know the names of the food items. You're not studying, but you are sort of immersing yourself. Or if you're walking around, you're always noticing that churches are called églises. You know, it's that type of thing. Like, what counts as study? So those are all things that I thought of. I also thought that sometimes certain elements of French I managed to learn or remember very quickly, and other things took longer. For example, I remember when I did my, oh wow, have I been talking for 6 minutes already? I remember when I did my, my French course in Paris. I had to speak in front of the class, I had to introduce myself, and the teacher critiqued me. Well, she wasn't mean, but she explained my mistake to me in front of the class. And in that, I learned it's la langue française, the French language, feminine, but le français, masculine. And from that, I have never forgotten, in the, you know, that 10 seconds of learning, I've never forgotten that is la langue française and le français. Also, in the story I was talking about the other day, when I said to the lady, je suis anglais, instead of je suis anglaise, in that 10 seconds, I've learned something that I've never ever forgotten since then, because it's been scarred on my brain. But on the other hand, you have things like, for example, in all of my videos, I think I say, and I don't even remember now exactly the right answer, but I always say possible à instead of possible de. I think it's that way around. But in all of my videos, all through it, I'm always going possible à, and it's not, it's possible de. I hope. Otherwise, this is just a good demonstration of what I'm talking about. And I have to listen to it, and then I'm editing it, and I'm reading it loads, and then I write the subtitle in French. This is literally hours and hours and hours and hours, and I still make the same mistake in comparison to the 10-second correction in front of the class that I now remember. So anyway, these are all things about why time spent studying French is a bit of a weird thing to calculate, maybe not that useful to calculate, maybe quite difficult to compare with other people. And also, a good point here is that progression in French is not linear. Now, let me explain this. So it's not like if you imagine a graph where, I don't know what way, if this is the mirror, but if you imagine a graph along the bottom is time spent studying, and the graph up the top is level of French. It's not a straight line. It's not like for every hour you spend studying, you improve this much. It's, if you're a complete beginner, to get to A1 from a complete beginner, say, takes that amount of time. It's quite, you can get to A1 very quickly. To get to A2 is just a little bit more of time. And to have noisy children, I don't know how long that takes, but it happens apparently. So if you're a beginner and you want to get to A1, it takes, like, say, that amount of time. When you want to get to A2, it maybe takes that amount of time. When you want to move from A2 to B1, it might take that amount of time. When you want to get from B1 to B2, it might take that amount of time. So it's basically, the better you are at French, the longer it takes to progress to the next level. So it's not like if I calculate that I do 100 hours a year, if you do 50 hours, then you're halfway to my level. I don't know if this really makes any sense what I'm saying, but basically what I'm saying is it's not a straight line. It's like a curve. So in the beginning, it's very easy to make progress, but then once you get in the middle, it's really hard to make visible progress. Okay, now we're gonna get onto the calculations. I will put here a little link in a minute, let me talk first. I will put a little number here, which is maybe here, I don't know, here, anywhere, which will be where you can skip to in the video if you just want to see the results of, after I've done all the calculation, how long did it take. I will give you the things you can skip, and then you see me going, oh, 4 hours a day, okay, goodbye. I will link you to that, but I encourage you to watch me figuring out how long it is, because I will A, talk through all the methods and how long I did them for, which is probably useful to you, and B, you might actually disagree with how I've done my calculation, so that would also be useful for you. For example, if I include watching French movies as part of my study and you don't think I should, then the end number you won't agree with it. Or if I don't include something and you think I should, then you'll also disagree with the end number. So to add context to the final result, I encourage you to watch at least some of me working out how long I've been doing this for. Okay, I can't believe I've been talking for 10 minutes. I'm sure this is annoying for you guys that I keep mentioning. Okay, now I'm going to start my screen recording software and I will get calculating. What's wrong with me today? Okay, so here is my spreadsheet. I know it's very sophisticated. Anyone who's very good at Excel, please don't laugh at me. I just need to make sure that I understand what I'm doing. So this here, 3rd of March 2015, is the date that I started learning French on Babel. I actually went and found the actual date for accuracy purposes. And then I've written all of the dates all the way until today's date, the 27th of June, and I will now input approximately how many hours or how many minutes I spent each day learning. Okay, so I finished adding like the estimated numbers of minutes sort of studying, learning French between the 3rd of March 2015 and today. I will now talk you through the different numbers so you can hear the different methods and sort of why I've put in the numbers I did. 3rd of March 2015, this is when I started doing Babble. Now I didn't do like 1 hour a day of Babble as written on here, but it just more averages out to what I would say is accurate. So that's between, for all of March, for all of April, and for all of May, I've put as 60 minutes a day, but really I wasn't doing it every day, and some of those like 60 minutes was doing the Babble vocabulary review, so it wasn't learning new things all the time, it was also revising the old things. And I would say that that averages out quite accurately, because sometimes when I was doing Babble, I do remember I would sometimes do it for 3 or 4 hours, but then I do remember that I also didn't do it for some days. So I feel like that's probably as accurate as I can be for that time. This averages out is that I started listening to a lot of French music. I used to walk to and from work for like 40-minute walk, and I used to listen to French music, primarily like kind of like French like hip hop pop music, and so these 60 minutes, I think they average out over the period of week, how long I think, like the value that I think the listening did. Obviously I've not put on how long I was listening to music for, but how much I think listening to the music sort of helped me with like the rhythm of French and sort of learning French words. Here, the 20-minute Babble stop in August. This is because Max was staying with me and I didn't really like doing Babble when other people were there. I didn't really like doing it. But then the 60 minutes changed to 90 minutes. And I think this was because sometimes I did do my Babble review. So I've added in a bit of time to compensate for some Babble lessons and Babble review. I was doing a bit during August. So that's why it's gone up to 90, because it's sort of taken that into account. These ones that start coming in, all these 10s, what I've done is anything that's a 10, that's if I was in Paris. So I've deemed that just being in Paris each day was probably worth about 10 minutes of study, as in just sort of, you know, being around like food with French labels on it, or hearing French conversations, or sometimes going to the supermarket. Just being in France, I've put, was worth 10 minutes a day, and I continue to do that throughout the rest of the calculation. These extra 10s that you see, these correlate to being in the airport. So going through the airport, I say, has added an extra 10 minutes on, because sometimes I have to like sit in the lounge and, you know, read like the French magazine that was free sometimes in the airport. This 3 that starts, this 3 then continues all the way until today. This 3 averages out as me listening to music in French. I listen to French music almost every day. It's just on my phone with all my normal music. And I do feel like listening to French music does support my learning, and I have learned words from it. You'll notice in one of my videos, when I had to describe a boat. It was part of the French game video. I had to describe a boat, and I said traverser les mers, or something like that, to cross the oceans, which is very poetic. It's actually from a Celine Dion song. That's where I learned it from. So these 15 minutes correspond to between like kind of September and December, I used to watch on average about 1.5 French movies per week, French movies with English subtitles, but I used to just watch them. Like, I didn't used to try to learn or try to hear or try not to look at the subtitles. I used to just watch them. So sometimes it would help me a lot with kind of how French sounded, and sometimes I would sometimes I would recognize words, but I wasn't doing it like proper. So I've written like on average over the course of that week, probably the movies I was watching equaled about 15 minutes of study, even though obviously the films were like hours long. Okay, so that's what those 15s are. This 120, this starts once a week for 7 weeks, and this was an online course that I did mention in one of my early French learning updates. It was run by Alliance Française. It was an online course that was about A2 level. A lot of it was revision, but some of it was like kind of challenging revision. So I have put 120 for that. I used to do 2 hours a week on this course. So that's that 120. This here, this 10, that is a visit to Paris, as I've explained before. So 10 for every day that you're there, 10 for the airport. I think that pretty much is, you know, what you see. So the 120 for the course, 15 minutes for the movie, 3 minutes for the music, and then these visits here, 10. I wasn't really doing like proper study during this time. I wasn't doing Babble. I'd finished Babble at this time, actually. I finished Babble in the September up here. I finished Babble like up here somewhere. So yeah, I was obviously at uni. I didn't have a lot of time, but I was still listening to French music, watching French songs, and visiting Paris. This is just a long visit to Paris. Again, another long visit to Paris. These 10s also sort of average out with time that I maybe went into Paris to do some sightseeing and things like that. And that's just pretty much what you see. This is a very long visit to Paris. That's why it's all these 10s. And you get a 10 here. Okay, so this 10 corresponds to the airport. So this is when I moved to Paris, the 22nd of May 16. So that's why I see all these 5s. They continue all the time that I'm living in Paris during the summer. I figured living in Paris during the summer, just being in Paris, was probably worth about 5 minutes of study a day, because I was a lot more used to French products and stuff like that. So this 10 minutes is being in the airport. This 3 minutes is still music. This 20 minutes that you see Friday, 22nd of May, that's me signing up for my French course. I figured that was about 20 minutes. The 60 minutes there that you see, that was me taking tests for my course. Then this 60 minutes here must have been added for some reason. All these 60s here average out as sort of what I would consider, you know, all the traveling that I was doing to and from lessons, maybe buying like a baguette and stuff like that, that's included in that 60. These massive numbers, this is my French course that I was doing, 3 hours in the morning plus homework. The homework is included in this. So that's all those big numbers. You see the numbers drop here because we had fewer lessons on these days. That's the end of the French course there. This 10, that was the airport. 5 stop because I visited England. 10 for the airport, 5s begin again. These 40s correspond to, they average out over the week time that I was doing on my grammar book. I did mention it at some point, I was using a grammar book, and that is in a video. I will link the thing with what grammar I was doing, but I probably only did that for about 2 weeks, so that's why it's just 2 40s. These 90s, again, they continue, I think, for the rest of the time in Paris, and these average out to, I was traveling into Paris and sightseeing around Paris for like maybe like 6 hours at a time, like 4 or 5 hours at a time, about 3 times a week. So I kind of like, maybe that's worth about each week about 90 minutes of study. So that's what you see. The music, because the 3 was the music, remember, 3 is French music, that goes up to 20 because I started making a lot more effort to put the TV on. So I was listening to a lot of French music on TV, a lot of the French news on TV. I was trying to make the most of the fact that I was in France, so that's why it goes from 3 to 20, because sometimes I would just leave the TV on for like maybe like 4 or 5 hours in the flat just to hear French. So that's that, and then of course the 5 is still continuing, and that's just the fact that I was in France. Okay, 10 because I was in the airport and I came home. Music goes back down to 3. These 60 minutes that start, these are the 60 minutes I used to meet up with my friend once a week to try to speak in French together. And we used to do that for an hour once a week, but we didn't always do it. That's why there's a bit of a gap there. I tried to remember which times we did and didn't meet up. Okay, so that's what the 60-minute is. I wasn't doing any like proper French study during this time. This 20 minutes that appears, this is me starting to talk a bit more with Max in French. So that's what the 20 minutes there is averaging out over the week times that we might have talked a little bit in French. Again, wasn't doing any proper French study. Max was on holiday away, that's why there's no 20 minutes there. See, I've tried to be very accurate. These that start, so this here is a visit to Paris, 10 minutes in the airport, and then I've like put like what I think the equivalent, because we did a lot of sightseeing, a lot of reading signs, reading maps, asking people for tickets, looking at like the descriptions of what things were in museums and things like that. I have counted that as like French study. Then this massive number, this is a French video that I did. I calculated, like, because I'm learning French through doing YouTube, I've tried to calculate like how much time I thought was like focusing on French. So if I was doing a video in French, I've included that as studying French, as in practicing French, and all the times I would have to, you know, rewind and cut and edit the video all the time. I'm listening to myself speaking French, and then when I'm adding the subtitles in English, I'm translating from French to English. Then when I'm later adding the subtitles in French, and then translating to English, but then writing it in French, properly in French, looking up the spellings, and then later I'm then highlighting if there's an error. So then I'm also Googling grammar, and so that's how I'm currently learning French, is by doing YouTube videos. And so for this particular one, I spent approximately 240 minutes on that one. These 20 minutes that you see, this averages out. I did a review of a French app called Flash Academy, and so this 20 minutes probably averages out to how much time I spent a lot of time using this app actually, but I don't really remember, so I've just put that in for time that I spent using the app before reviewing it. This 60 minutes, what is that? Don't know. Do you know what that was for? It must be there for something. Maybe I was talking to Max in French. I wouldn't have just added it needlessly. I must have been doing something. Then you start getting all these big numbers, sort of sporadic, well not sporadic, but like big spaced out numbers. This is YouTube videos, so like big load of French, no French, loads of French, no French, loads of French, no French, loads of French, you know, So you see these just massive numbers and just nothing, just massive numbers, and that's how it continues. There's a really big one. Where's the really big one? 520, that might be the video that I did with Max. That took a lot of editing, and obviously we filmed for about 40 minutes in French as well. Then I cut it down, obviously. So they vary. I looked at each individual video and tried to figure out how long it took me, etc. So yeah, this is all in minutes. Obviously some of these are like a lot of minutes. Maybe you don't know, a 5-minute long French video takes a lot to produce, edit, you know, rewinding, you're listening to yourself in French, you're critiquing, you're writing the subtitle, is the subtitle spelled correctly, etc. Yeah, then here I took a massive break, so I was working on my university work. 660, this was a video that I think this is the French game video. The first time that I timed how long it took to do the French and English subtitles, and it took me 10 hours. So that's why maybe this is a more accurate amount of time. So the whole time I'm doing the video, I'm listening to French, writing to French, writing in English, Googling if Googling in a dictionary to see if I've spelled the words right, etc. And then we're coming up to current day. There we are. There's the one that I did the other day, the vlog. I estimated that that was probably about 480 study minutes. Yeah, so now I'm going to calculate. How much that was. I was actually surprised when I was putting it in. It seemed like a lot more than I was expecting, actually. So maybe it's going to be a lot, right? Okay, so I'll admit, first time round I did the calculation wrong and I've had to film this bit again. So I found in total, you should see on the screen the numbers, so I don't need to tell you completely, but so yeah, on average, over the whole time I've been learning French, I've been doing 29.9 minutes per day on my French, which I'm pretty happy with. I didn't realise I was doing so much, and I'm glad. That seems like a reasonable amount for the sort of level that I'm at. And I've also calculated how this changed over the years. So the more that I've been learning French, the more I've been learning French per day. So yeah, my current, on this third year so far, it's about 116 days or something into the third year. I'm learning on average 36 minutes a day of French. And what's really interesting is when you look at the figure for the total hours, 424 hours in total learning French. When you look at the standard charts, I'll insert some pictures of standard charts for you to see. 424 hours puts me kind of between B1 and B2, which is my level. So what this shows is that even though I'm self-taught, I'm at the level I should be, and this is the type of level I would be at if I had been taking standard French lessons. So I am very pleased with that. The number of hours I've done truly corresponds to my actual level. And that I'm not behind because I'm learning via YouTube, and I'm not behind because I'm self-taught. So I'm super happy with that, and I really hope you enjoyed watching this video and that it was useful for you, and I will see you all next time. Bye bye.